Today we will be focusing on subtracting fractions. Now this is just basic fractions of subtracting with unlike denominators, so this does not have any borrowing involved. That will be in another video. So this is just plain subtracting fractions with unlike denominators. So their math diaries, they should have this with them. If not, this is very similar to the adding fractions. You need to write the fraction vertically up and down, find a common denominator using the fancy M, make the fraction equal to the new denominator, and then I did write bring the whole number with you if there is one. Think, what do I multiply by to get the new denominator? So far, all of these steps are the exact same as the adding fractions. Remember, whatever you do to that denominator, you need to do to the top, and don't forget to bring the whole number with you. So steps number 1 through 6 are actually all the same. Write the fractions vertically, find a common denominator, make the fraction equal to the new denominator. Think, what do I multiply by to get the new denominator? Whatever you do to that denominator, do to the top, or the numerator, and don't forget to bring the whole number with you. Now is when it's different. Now you need to subtract the numerators, and I did write if you can, because there will be times when you can't, and that's when I said if you can't subtract, go to the next page. So tomorrow we are going to, or whenever you're viewing this, we will then be talking about how to borrow when you're subtracting fractions, but for right now, you subtract the numerator, subtract the whole number, the denominator stays the same, and then you need to fix any improper fractions or reduce. So I'm going to do 2 examples for you. These should actually be pretty easy for us. I am going to do one that is just a proper fraction, and the other one will be a mixed fraction. So the first one, we have 2/3 minus 1/4. So step number 1 is to write the fraction up and down. So I wrote it up and down, I wrote it vertically. Step number 2 is to find that common denominator using the fancy M. So my first denominator is a 3, my second denominator is a 4. So now I just start multiplying. So 3 times 2 is 6, 4 times 2 is 8. I do not have anything in common yet, so I'm going to keep going. 3 times 3 is 9, 4 times 3 is 12, and then times 4. 3 times 4 is 12, 4 times 4 is 16, and right there I do see a common denominator of 12. So far, step number 1, write the fraction up and down. Step number 2, find the common denominator. Now you need to make your fraction equal the new denominator. So that's all you do. This is your new denominator, you make it equal. I'm going to erase this just so I have more room. Now my 4th step is my thinking step. I am going to do 3 times 4 to get 12. Now remember, you're only looking at this fraction. So I need to do 2 times 4 and I get 8. Sometimes the students will accidentally multiply everything by 4. That is only for that fraction. So some students, if they want to erase this, if they want to cover it up, because we are no longer dealing with that fraction, we are only looking at 8/12. Now down here, I need to figure out how can I go from 4 to 12. Well, for that, I multiply by 3. So now I do 1 times 3 and I get 3 here. Once again, some students might just want to cover it up. Some students kind of use like a post-it note. Some students don't need to cover it up. I just think it helps when you just have what you need. Now, I didn't have a whole number, so there was no whole number, so I didn't need to worry about that. Can I subtract 8 minus 3? The answer is yes. So 8 minus 3 is 5, and I get 5/12. This is not an improper fraction, and I cannot reduce it because 5, I can only do 5 divided by 5, but I cannot do 12 divided by 5 and get an even number. So that means this is my final answer. So let me show you an example with a whole number. So this would be a mixed number. You still do it the exact same way. So step number 1, write it up and down. Step number 2, find a common denominator. So I'm going to use my fancy M, so I'm on step number 2. 8 times 2 is 16, 4 times 2 is 8. Oh, right there. Some students will want to use 32 because they'll do 8 times 4. That is fine, but then there will be more reducing that you will have to do. So that's kind of why I like the fancy M trick, because it does give you smaller, lower numbers to work with. You still might have to reduce, but you just won't have to reduce as many times. So step number 3 is to make your fraction equal the new denominator. And once again, I am just going to erase this just so I have more room. Bring your whole number with you. Oh, this time I do have a whole number. Oh, and you know what? I didn't really leave myself enough room. I'm going to rewrite that. So I need to write the new denominator, bring my whole number with me. There we go. That looks much better. Now, step number 4 is think. What do I multiply by to get the new denominator? Okay, so I'm only going to look at the first one. Oh, 8 times 1 is 8. So that means 7 times 1 is 7. This is actually the exact same. I'm going to erase this one just so that way I don't confuse myself. Now I'm still on step number 4. I am still thinking, how do I go from 4 to 8? Well, I times it by 2. So whatever you do to the bottom, do to the top, and that's actually step 5. Whatever you do to that denominator, do to the numerator. 3 times 2 is 6. And then it once again says, don't forget to bring the whole number, because that is a very minor thing that students do forget, but it does change the problem. So now it says subtract the numerators. 7 minus 6. Yes, I can do that, and I get 1. Step number 9 is that your denominator always stays the same. Subtract the whole numbers. 8 minus 5 is 3, and there is my answer. So this is how you subtract fractions. It is very similar to adding fractions. The biggest things you have to find a common denominator. So please let me know if you have any questions on that.